she saw Naruto blush and glare at her. "Kurenai-chan's not my girlfriend," he yelled. "Yet, anyways, I didn't think you'd take an apprentice, Kurenai-chan," Naruto stated and heard her sigh. "I didn't either. I just hope I'm good enough to train her," the red-eyed beauty said with doubt in her voice, and apparently Naruto didn't like how she doubted herself. "Good enough. You're one of the best ninja in the village, like Kakashi-ni-san and Rin-ne-chan are. You'll make a great teacher for Yakumo-chan, and anyone who says otherwise is just jealous of you," he stated with a grin on his face. Kurenai smiled at the praise he gave her, and it was true, since she was the best genjutsu user, since her skills in the art rivaled that of the Uchihas and members of the Kurama clan. "Kufkisupka." Anko coughed and then leaps away when Naruto pulls out a black bakken wooden sword out a seal from his wrist where he keeps his weapons and attempts to hit her side, and she lands on a rooftop grinning. "I give you an A for effort but an F for your timing and precision, Naru-chan." She jeered at the pissed of blonde who had a dangerous grin on his face, and his now activated Sharingan eyes were twitching like crazy. "Stay right where you are, Anko Mitarashi," Naruto said in a calm yet deadly voice until Anko gave him a raspberry and shunshuns away. Naruto then turns towards Kurenai and Yakumo, eye smiling. "If you ladies will excuse me, I have a snake to skin," he said and shunpoed away. They remained silent for a while until Yakumo tugs on her teacher's sleeve. "Anyo Kurenai-sensei, will Naruto-kun be alright?" she asked while the red-eyed beauty sighs. "Yes, this is something that occurs whenever they meet." Anko teases us until Naruto snaps and chases her around Konoha until nightfall. She answered while brushing a strand of hair back. "Oh, so he actually has a crush on you?" Yakumo asked Kurenai, who chuckles and shakes her head. "Sadly yes, and has had it since he was 8. When I first met him he asked me if I was an angel in disguise," she explained while scratching the tip of her nose with her index finger. "Anyhow, let's get you home. I don't want your uncle getting worried." After hunting down Anko for about 5 hours, he appeared in a training ground with a peeved expression on his face. "One of these days I swear I'm gonna get her," he muttered, but then ducked when a kunai whizzed past him and hit a tree branch. "What the, oi, who's throwing kunai?" he yelled, and out of the bushes came a girl who seemed to be a year older than Naruto. She had brown hair that had 2 buns on the sides of her head and was wearing a pink sleeveless Chinese shirt with forest green pants and blue sandals, and was rubbing the back of her head in embarrassment. "Sorry, I didn't know there was someone else here," she apologized while Naruto sighs and stands back up. "It's fine, I didn't get hit though, I did lose a few strands of hair," he stated as she approached him and blinked. "Say, I remember you. You and a man who wore black and had orange spiky hair always came to my dad's shop," she stated, and Naruto blinked. "You must be talking about my step-dad Ichigo." "I'm Naruto," he said holding out his hand. "Tenten Higurashi. So you're the academy student all the teachers were talking about." "My teacher mentioned a blonde with black streaks in his hair was the top of his current class." "That must be you," she said while Naruto shook her hand in return. "Yeah, that's me. You're in the advanced classes, right?" he asked, and got a nod from Tenten, and she noticed Naruto's bakken. "So you're learning how to use a sword as well?" she asked, and Naruto nodded. "Yeah, I am, but my mother is also teaching me how to use other weapons like a bow staff, kusarigama, scythe, and other weapons," he answered, which made her gawk. "Wow, your mom sounds like a slave driver," she said, grinning while he rubbed the back of his head. "Tell me about it, but hey, if I want to be a great ninja like she is, I have to go through a little pain no matter how torturing it is," he said nonchalantly, which made her sweat drop. "Okay," she said, rubbing the back of her head. "Well, it's getting late, and if you ever want to spar in weapon katas, let me know. I could always use a partner's," she said, and then left the training field, waving back to the blonde who waves back, and was about to leave until he sensed something nearby and activated the Sharingan. "Is there a reason why you're spying on me, Kushina-san?" Naruto asked in a dangerous tone, and the redhead walked out of the forest. Naruto narrowed his eyes at her and held the bakken tightly in his hand, not letting his guard down for a second and channeling wind chakra into it. Kushina noticed this and brought her hands up as a form of peace. "Wait please, I didn't come here to try anything, I only came to talk, I swear," she stated while his eyes glowed red for a while to see if there was any form of deception in her eyes. "Is that right? And why should I believe you?" Naruto asked harshly, which made Kushina flinch at his tone and look at the ground in shame, and that was when Naruto felt a gloved hand on his shoulder and looked up to see Ichigo, who had a stern look on his face. "Because she knows that if she tried anything she'd have to deal with me. I witnessed your chase with that Anko lady, and I have to say you're getting better at shunpo," he said, smirking, but then got serious. "So Kushina, mind telling me what you want with my son?" Kushina looked up at Ichigo and knew he was the Kyuubi and has been taking of Naruto along with Himegami ever since that day, and found out that a masked ninja was responsible for him attacking the village and the death of her husband. "I only wanted to give Naruto what is rightfully his," she answered, and got a raised brow from the man. "And you didn't give it to him earlier because Ichigo asked. Because your wife is very cautious of me and doesn't trust me to go near Naruto and would think I'm trying to pull something. She answered while the orange-haired man folded his arms. Can't say I blame her. He replied, which made her flinch again, and then she reaches into her vest and pulls out a few scrolls and places them on the ground. These scrolls contain the Namikaze clan's techniques, including the ones your father made. The others are from my side of the Uzumaki clan, and they each contain jutsu for the different elements as well as the other ninja arts. She said as she backed away from them. Ichigo walked around Naruto and towards the 3 scrolls and eyes them for a while and then looks up at Kushina. They're not trapped, Ichigo-san, as I know what the consequences would be should I attempt to try anything. Kushina assured them, and Ichigo looked for any form of deceit in her eyes and saw none. He then picked them up and tossed them to Naruto. She then started to turn around and leave afterwards until she felt a hand grab her wrist and turned her head to see Naruto looking up at her. Thank you, Kushina. Even though I can't see you as my mother, I will not let what happened in the past cloud my judgment. If you want, we can start off being friends. He offered Kushina. I smiled while tears fell from her face and she nodded. I'd like that very much, Naruto-kun, and if you can do me a favor and look out for Kasumi-chan for me when I'm not around, I'd be very grateful. She asked and he nodded back. He was mostly neutral to Kasumi but would make small talk whenever he met her in the districts. And if you need any help on those jutsu I gave you, feel free to come by the Namikaze estates. She said and vanished in a swirl of wind. Ichigo placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder and said. Blonde looked up to see the man smiling. That was a very mature thing you did, Naruto. Wallowing in the past is not healthy for anyone, and doing so would ruin not only your life but will also affect the ones you care about. Now the scary part is explaining this whole thing to your mother. He said. Oh, there's no need for that, said a feminine voice behind them, and the two jumped up in surprise and turned around to see Himegami, who had an amused look on her face. Ka-san, I thought you would be gone for another day, Naruto stated. I know, but I managed to find the certain items I had stashed away a day earlier and headed back. Himegami then noticed the small scrolls in Naruto's hand and raised a brow. So Kushina gave you your inheritance, Hosochi? She asked, and the blonde nodded. Yes, she did. She offered to help me out with any of the techniques that are in the scrolls, if that's okay with you, Ka-san. Naruto asked Himegami, who pondered on this and nodded. It's fine with me now, come on, let's head home because my feet are killing me, she stated, but then squeaked out in surprise when Ichigo scooped her up in his arms and held her bridal style. What are you doing? She asked her husband, who just grinned. What, you said your feet hurt, so I'm gonna carry you home, Megami-chan, he answered while she blushed at his lady killer grin. It was a figure of speech. She protested, getting a shrug from him. So what if it was? I still want to carry you, he said cheekily, and she looked away blushing. Naruto on the other hand rolled his eyes. If you two are done flirting, can we go home? Naruto asked the two. All right, kiddo. Bet I could race you back to the compound while carrying your mother, Ichigo challenged while Naruto grinned. You're one, Naruto said, and they shunpoed to the compound, leaving a small streak of dust. A week later, after the academy classes were over with, Naruto was heading into the market district until he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned his head to see none other than Kasumi Namikaze. She looked the same as her mother but had a blonde highlight in her red hair. Hey Naruto-kun, she said as she pulled her hand away from his shoulder. Hello Kasumi-chan, what's up? He asked the redhead, who shrugged. Not much. I saw you heading to the market district and wanted to know if you'd like to get some ramen, she asked Naruto. Said blonde thought about it and nodded. Sure, I don't have to be home for a while, he said, and then ducked when a blur flew over his head and skidded across the ground, revealing Tsukino Uchiha, who stomped her foot in frustration. Naruto and Kasumi snickered at how she's acting. I almost had you, darn it, she said and huffed up while Kasumi giggled. Tsukina-chan, I could smell you from a mile away. Plus your chakra was easy to sense. You should consider trying to suppress it more, he stated while she pouted. Shut up. So where are you two going? Tsukina asked. To get some ramen. Wanna join us? Naruto asked, unaware of the tick mark that formed on Kasumi's face. Aw, come on. How hard is it for me to spend some time with Naruto-kun? She screamed in her mindscape. That was when Tsukina appeared beside him with her arms wrapped around his arm with a grin on her face which only irked Kasumi. Great, let's go then. Kasumi walked over to Naruto's other side and wrapped her arms around his arm. Yes, let's, Tsukina replied with a forced smile on her face. Naruto blinked in confusion, wondering what was up with them while they made their way to Ichiraku's. As they entered the stand, Chuki, the owner of the ramen shop, saw Naruto, Akemi, and Kasumi and smiled. Well, if it isn't my favorite customers, he said, getting a return smile from them as they sat down on the stools. Hey Chuki, how's it going? Naruto asked the man. Not much, kiddo. Just selling ramen as usual, he answered. Ayame, Chuki's 14-year-old daughter entered from behind the shop and saw Naruto and grinned. "Hey Naruto-kun," she said, getting the blonde's attention, and Naruto grinned back. "Hey Ayame-chan, you're looking well. I guess my Ka-san's remedy helped you with that cold that lasted for 2 weeks, huh?" he asked the girl, who nodded. "It sure did. Do you think it's possible for me to get the ingredients for the cure from her?" she asked. "I'll see what I can do. So is there anything new on the menu?" he asked as he grabbed one of the menus and opened it up. "Well, we just recently created a new ramen flavor, but we haven't tested it yet," Chuki stated, and then grinned. "Perhaps you and your company would like to test it out," he suggested with a glint in his eye which made Ayame's sweat drop. Naruto blinked a few times and shrugs. "Sure, I'll give it a try. What about you two?" he asked Kasumi and Sukina, who thought about it and nodded. "Sure, we'll try it," Kasumi answered. "Great, just give me a sec to make it," he said, and turned around and proceeded to make it. While he was doing that, Kasumi decided to start up a conversation. "Naruto-kun, can I ask you a question?" the redhead asked. "Sure, what is it?" he asked Kasumi, who looked a little skeptic for a while and spoke up. "Do you think you can ever forgive my Ka-san for what she's done?" she asked Naruto, who raised an eyebrow and sighs while brushing his hair back. "Forgive, yes, but forget, no. Right now Kushina's trying to make it up to me by offering to teach me how to use the Uzumaki clan's bloodline properly, and also gave me my biological father's techniques. And so that you know, while I am still upset, I'm not the type to hold a grudge, so I'll give her a chance to redeem herself," he said with a small smile on his face, and she smiled brightly. "Thank you Naruto-kun," Kasumi said gratefully while Sukina wondered what they were talking about. Chuki managed to finish the order. "All right, here it is," he said, and placed 3 bowls in front of them. In it was ramen and a variety of meats and vegetables, but the noodles seemed to have a tint of red on them. "This is the new ramen recipe I came up with. I call it curry ramen, and it's very spicy." In one bowl they could hear sizzling and looked skeptic. "Is it supposed to hiss at us?" Sukina asked while the man chuckled. "Just try it and trust your taste buds will be screaming afterwards," he replied. So the 3 took their chopsticks, scooped up some ramen, and each took a bite and swallowed the noodles. Chuki and Ayame watched with anticipation, wondering how they'll react. "Wow, this isn't so bad," Kasumi replied, but then her eyes bugged out, as did Sukina's, and they dropped their chopsticks. Naruto paused for a second and steam escaped from his ears. A few seconds later the sound of screaming could be heard coming out of the ramen stand, which surprised those who were passing by the stand and wondered what was going on. A red-faced Sukina and Kasumi came bolting out of the stand, crying out in agony. "Water! I need water!" Sukina cried out. "My mouth's on fire!" Kasumi wailed and shot a stream of fire from her mouth for emphasis, causing everyone to sweat drop as they attempted to fan their mouths with their hands while anime tears fell from their faces. Naruto walked out with 2 large glasses of water and approached them. They saw it and instantly grabbed the glasses and gulped down the water. Naruto on the other hand chuckled at this, and when they finished drinking, Ayame walked out of the stand looking sheepish. "I'm so sorry about that, Sukina-chan, Kasumi-chan. The curry-flavored ramen was a prototype and Two-san needed to test it on someone." She apologized. "Apologize for what? I thought it was great," Naruto stated, which made them turn bug-eyed and look at him in disbelief. "What? I like spicy food, especially the type Ka-san makes, so I'm used to eating stuff like that. You two on the other hand are lightweights," he teased, which made them blush in embarrassment and glare at Naruto. After that little scene, the 3 of them just spent their time walking around and talking until they heard the sound of a log being punched repeatedly. "What's that noise?" Kasumi asked. "Don't know. Let's check it out," Sukina stated as they went to the direction where the sounds were coming from. As they made it through the forest, they saw someone who appeared to be a year older than them. He had bug eyes and 2 large eyebrows. His hair was jet black and cut above his shoulders, and wore a Chinese attire with blue sandals. He was Rock Lee and was currently punching and kicking a log post repeatedly with. "I must be able to perform 1,000 punches and kicks before nightfall, and if I can't do that, then I'll do 2,000 push-ups and sit-ups before the next sunrise," he said to himself as he continued to strike the post with his fists and feet. The others were watching this, and Naruto couldn't help but be impressed. "Man, whoever this guy is, he can sure push himself," Naruto stated. "Judging from the imprints on the training post, he's been at this for at least 2 hours. Kasumi's and Sukina's eyes widened when they heard his comment. Lee continued his exercise but started to get exhausted. "No, I must keep going on. I must prove that hard work can overcome the skills of a genius," he said, but the overexertion was too much and he collapsed onto the ground and goes unconscious. Naruto leaps out of the bushes and crouches down to check Lee's pulse while Kasumi and Sukina came out of the bushes as well. "He's fine, just suffering from exhaustion," Naruto stated, and then hefted the unconscious boy over his shoulder. "Let's get this guy to a hospital and afterwards I'll escort you two home." Night. The street lights were on and the shops were starting to close. Right now Naruto was escorting Sukina to the Uchiha clan district after taking Kasumi back to the Namikaze clan compound. Thanks for escorting me back home Naruto-kun even though you didn't have to. She proclaimed while he smiled. I know but I'm just making sure you make it home alright. He replied while she smiled at how he was being a gentleman. As they entered the Uchiha district Naruto paused and frowned while Sukina did the same. What is it? She asked Naruto who remained still. Something's wrong here. The lights in the district aren't even on yet and also. His eyes widened in shock. The strong scent of blood and smoke is in the air. Sukina's eyes widened as well when she heard this. What? Then that means. She suddenly took off. Sukina wait. Naruto yelled and went after her. She ran around a corner and gasped in horror at what she saw. The streets were littered with the dead and scorched bodies of members of her clan and she covered her mouth up. Naruto managed to catch up with her and he was horrified at the sight as well. My Kami, who could have done this? He wondered and that was when they heard a groan and saw one of the members lean against the wall clutching his bleeding arm. Uncle Kohaku, Sukina cried out and ran over to the injured man. Said Uchiha looked up to see his niece and a blonde running towards him. Sukina, he said and gritted his teeth in pain. What happened? Who has done this? She asked the man while Naruto's hand glowed green and started to heal his arm. It was Shisui, he answered. He just appeared out of nowhere and started to attack everyone who was in his path. What? But why? Why would he do this? She asked until they heard an explosion. That came from, oh no Ka-san, Tu-san. She ran off to her family compound much to the protest of Naruto. Sukina-chan wait, you just can't, he stated until Kohaku placed a hand on his shoulder. Hey kid you have to stop her before she gets hurt. The man replied and slowly staggered to his feet. Don't worry about me, I'll be fine since only my arm was injured. Now go, he ordered. Naruto nodded and then he tapped a seal under his arm and a sheathed ninjutsu appeared in his hand and he took off. Meanwhile, an explosion erupted from the wall of the compound and leaping through the explosion was Fugaku who was holding his wife in his arms and he crashed into the ground but with severe scorch marks on his clothes and he was gravely injured. Makoto saw the state her husband was in and was horrified. Makoto-chan are you okay? He asked while blood dripped from his mouth. Fugaku-kun, you're hurt badly. She said while tears formed in her eyes. I know, damn that Shisui. Fugaku growled out but then his body jerked due to the fact that he was impaled through the heart by a blade and his blood splattered on Makoto's face. Weakling, you don't deserve to call yourself the clan head, Shisui said in a cold tone before ripping his blade out of the man's back and kicking him away. Fugaku, Makoto screamed out while tears fell from her face when she saw the life leave her husband's eyes. Shisui on the other hand smiled evilly when he saw this and spat on the dead man's face. God riddance, trash like him has no right to call himself an Uchiha. He then set his gaze on Makoto and raised his blade. Don't feel too bad because you'll be joining him in the afterlife. He said and swung his blade down at her head. Clang, Shisui's katana was stopped by a ninjutsu and the wielder happened to be none other than Naruto Kurosaki. Said blonde's Sharingan eyes were glowing red and he gave the Uchiha a murderous look. Before Shisui could respond, a cage bunshin appeared into the air behind the man and threw a volley of kunai and shuriken at the man who leapt away and glared at Naruto. Beat it outcast, this is none of your concern, he said while Sukina ran to her mother and hugged the distraught woman. Shut up, you murdered your own kin in cold blood you bastard, Naruto remarked while Shisui scoffed not caring about what he did. So what if I did? Doing so gave me the power I needed. The true power of the Uchiha clan. That was when a sick smile formed on his face. Why don't I show you what this power is by killing you with it? His eyes changes and morphed into an atomic symbol and a maniacal grin was on his face. Amaterasu, sun goddess. Black flames suddenly shot out of nowhere and headed right for Naruto, Makoto, and Sukina. Damn it, I can't evade that, the blonde said frantically as the flames got closer and started to go through some hand signs until. Kamui, might of the gods, said a calm yet deadly voice. A warped void suddenly appeared in front of them and sucked the flames in, surprising them and Shisui. Impossible, who did that? Shisui shouted, and that was when a lone figure appeared in front of Naruto, Sukina, and Makoto. They realized who it was. Itachi ni-san, Sukina asked while said Uchiha looked back and his eyes like Shisui's were morphed and were in the form of a curved tri-pronged shuriken. Itachi, what are you doing? Shisui started to ask until his eyes widened due to the fact that he sensed something behind him and he twisted his body and used his blade to block another from another Itachi who had a murderous look on his face. The cage bunshin scoped up a distraught Makoto in his arms and also grabbed Sukina and Shunshin's away with Naruto following via Shunpo. You're gonna pay for what you've done, traitor, Itachi said in a cold and murderous voice while Shisui smirked. I'd like to see you try. Shisui taunted as their Mangekyo Sharingan spun wildly. The Cage Bunshin appeared with Makoto and Sukina near a safe house away from the Uchiha clan district where those who managed to get away from Shisui's assault were hiding. Naruto did as well with his ninjutsu strapped to his back. Itachi, what's going on? Why is Shisui doing this? Makoto asked while the tears streamed down her face. The Bunshin was about to speak up until it was hit in the skull by a kunai and dispelled, surprising the group. Well, it looks like I found some stragglers, said a voice from the shadows. Sukina ran to her mother and hugged her closely, trembling in fear, while a man with black spiky hair wearing a mask with odd markings, with a single eye hole, and a black cloak walked out of the shadows. Naruto instantly drew his ninjutsu and stood on front of Makoto and Sukina. Who are you? Naruto growled out, which the tomo in his eyes spun rapidly. The masked man paused as he saw those eyes and narrowed his. In a burst of speed no one could follow, he appeared in front of a surprised Naruto and swatted his blade aside like it was nothing and grabbed the blonde by his throat and hoisted him into the air. Naruto-kun, put him down, Sukina cried while said blonde struggled in the man's grip. This is the same boy who had Kyuubi sealed in him, but now I don't even sense a speck of the beast's chakra, and his eyes, the power emitting from them, feels familiar. He thought, where is the Kyuubi boy? Tell me or I'll make sure you and those two suffer for this. He growled out and pulled out a kunai, ignoring the protesting screams from Makoto and Sukina while he raised the weapon. He was about to drive it into Naruto's shoulder, but that was when a hand grabbed his wrist and stopped his attack. What the? Madara said in shock and turned his head to see the glowing red eyes of Ichigo Kurosaki, and the man was beyond pissed. Madara dropped Naruto, who gasped and sucked in air while Sukina ran over to help him. Hello Madara, Ichigo said venomously while the canines from his upper lip jutted out. Remember me? Because I sure as hell remember you. Ichigo roared and kicked the man in the torso so hard that he heard his ribs crack and was sent flying into a tree and leaving an imprint of his body. Madara gasped out in pain as he has never been kicked like that since he fought Hashirama and Himegami. Who are you? Madara wheezed out while clutching his broken ribs. Who am I? You should know since you forced me to attack the village and destroyed Naruto's family, you bastard. Ichigo replied as he held his right hand out and summoned Tensa Zangetsu. Madara's eyes widened in surprise as he saw Kyuubi in human form. Kyuubi? He asked in astonishment and then grinned behind his mask. So my pet found a way to escape. Too bad you'll be doing a repeat in destroying this pathetic village. He said as his eyes morphed into the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan and attempted to force his influence on Ichigo. Said former Shinigami smiled darkly and slowly approached the man. Madara's eyes widened in disbelief at what was happening. Why aren't my eyes working on you? He asked in frustration. That would be thanks to me, said a feminine yet dangerous voice. Madara's blood ran cold as he heard the voice and slowly turned around to see someone he feared more than death. His older sister, Himegami. Dread and fear was in the man's voice as he saw his eldest sister with her scythe drawn. Hello little brother, how dare try to harm my son and force your influence on my husband? She said, activating her eternal Mangekyo Sharingan and flared her chakra around the area. Madara started to step back slowly as the two glared at him and ready to tear him apart. I should have killed you right after Hashirama defeated you in the Valley of the End. You have caused nothing but trouble, taking Naruto's chance of happiness from him when he was born, and now you're attempting to massacre our kin and kill him. Said asked coldly. This is bad. There's no way I can fight her of all people. She used to beat me and Izuna for fun when we were kids. From the looks of it she hasn't lost any of her strength at all. I have to get Shisui and get out of here. He thought, as much as I would love to have a family reunion with Yune-chan, have to cut this meeting short. He said and suddenly warped away while Ichigo attempted to decapitate him with his blade and curses. Damn it, coward, Ichigo said angrily and looked back at Makoto and Sukina. Are you three all right? He asked and got a nod from them while Himegami checked Naruto. With Itachi and Shisui was not faring well against Itachi even though he gained the Mangekyo Sharingan. He has slash marks and burns on his person and Itachi seemed to be fine. Said future clan head eyes glowed with fury as he glared at his former best friend. This isn't right. Even though I gained the Mangekyo I still can't beat him. He said in frustration and had to evade a volley of miniature fireballs that Itachi unleashed and deflected the other with his blade. He left himself wide open and Itachi appeared in front of surprised Shisui and delivered a chakra-enhanced kick at his torso and sent him flying into a wall which left a large crater. The master of Shunshin collapsed and coughed up a glob of blood and gave Itachi a hateful look. How can you still be stronger than me even though I gained the true form of the Sharingan? He growled out in anger. Because you failed to expand your horizon. You believe that just because you possess the ultimate form of our clan's bloodline, which you don't, you are invincible. Such foolishness and belief is appalling and leads to arrogance and death. You may have bested the others, but I am on a whole different level. Itachi vanished and appeared behind Shisui with his blade raised. "Goodbye Shisui, and may you suffer in hell for your crimes," he said with no remorse, and proceeded to sever Shisui's head from his shoulders until he sensed someone behind him and leapt away from a kunai slash and skidded back, glaring at the cloaked figure. "We've wasted enough time here Shisui. Let's go," Madara said, and got a nod from the man who glared back at Itachi. "Enjoy this victory while you can Itachi, because next time you won't be so lucky." Shisui spat and they warped away. The eldest son of the late Fugaku deactivated his eyes, and that was when a squad of Anbu appeared. "Itachi Taicho, what happened here?" asked Neko while Itachi wiped a bead of sweat from his head. "We were attacked. Inform the Hokage that need a fire in the Uchiha district to help put out the fires. The survivors were sent to one of the clan safehouses at the edge of the village," he explained, and got a nod from her. Two of the Anbu shunsen away to inform their leader of the incident, while the others assisted Itachi in trying to keep the flames from spreading outwards by performing some water jutsu. 4 years have passed since Shisui and Madara massacred nearly half of the Uchiha clan. Luckily most of the civilian Uchiha and police force were able to survive the assault. When word got out in the village how Shisui almost wiped out half of his clan, many were shocked at why he would do such a thing. Due to his father's death at the hands of the traitor, Itachi had to take the position as the clan head and the chief of the police forces. Hiruzen also increased the security around the village, and Shisui was declared an S-class missing nin who was to be killed on sight by the Anbu and Konoha hunter nin. After that event, Naruto still continued his training under his parents, as well as got some assistance from Kushina under Himegami's watch, of course, to make sure she didn't try anything. During those years, Himegami became pregnant, and she and Ichigo had a daughter and named her Masaki, after Ichigo's mother. Masaki inherited her mother's features but Ichigo's auburn hair and amber eyes. When this event occurred, Naruto was beyond ecstatic in having a younger sibling and would do everything to make sure she was alright, which impressed his parents and friends, especially Himegami. Naruto would sometimes stay the night with his little sister in case she had nightmares and would rock her back to sleep. He would even help his mother whenever Ichigo was on a mission for the Hokage. The ones who were impressed the most were Makoto, Tsume, Hana, and even Kurenai and Anko. Whenever they saw Naruto with the little ball of energy and with the way he watched over her, they could already tell that he would make a great father in the future. Takara also helped when it came to little Masaki, as she would always try to steal her from Naruto, which was kind of funny for the grown-ups to see them argue over who would feed her or take her to the park. He also gained a strong friendship with Kasumi, and he would sometimes show her how to counteract dojutsu such as the Sharingan for example, and would also help Hinata, Tenten, Yakumo, Tsukina, and Sakura with their training whenever they weren't in the academy. Also during the years he met his godfather Jiraiya, but that was an event that didn't go well at first due to the fact that he caught the man peeking on Kushina, Anko, Kurenai, Makoto, Tsume, and even Himegami when they were relaxing in a hot spring. It almost resulted in Naruto nearly roasting him alive with fire jutsu, and Ichigo went after him with Tensei-Zangetsu when he found out the man peeked on his wife, which was humorous to the Sandaime who had asked him not to kill his student for his actions. Reluctantly they did, but Naruto burned his research with a fire jutsu and threatened to burn off his manhood if he ever caught him trying that again, which resulted him getting hugged to death by Anko, Kurenai, Kushina, Makoto, and Tsume, with Jiraiya calling Naruto a lucky bastard, which resulted in him once again getting chased around Konoha by a ticked-off Naruto who tried to fry his with fire and lightning jutsu. Afterwards, Jiraiya offered to help Naruto by teaching him some jutsu he created and learned, and taught him a little about espionage, which is what he excelled since he had a worldwide spy network, which impressed Naruto that he could keep up with such a network. He also met Rock Lee, who had declared Naruto to be his eternal rival, especially when he saw him easily beat Neji Hyuga, the so-called next rookie of the year in his age group outside the academy, without even trying, and beat someone even he couldn't beat in taijutsu. Naruto would occasionally have spars with Lee that would result in the training grounds in the academy being reduced to craters and destroyed trees and logs. He also showed Lee how to combine his taijutsu using weapons such as tonfa, a bow staff, and even talons like the ones Ryu used in Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2. Also Himegami also helped Itachi in using the Mangekyo Sharingan properly so that he wouldn't exhaust his chakra, and even had him improve in things like increasing his stamina, speed, and physical form so that he would be able to fight a lot better in close combat and fighting opponents physically stronger than him, and the same went with Kakashi. While the man was an A-class shinobi respected and feared throughout the ninja world, she helped work on getting him to his father's level and managed to find a way for him to use his Sharingan without wasting so much energy. During his time in the Ninja Academy, Naruto had kept his position as the best in the class for the last several years, impressing every teacher in the school at how he was able to easily understand everything, and stated that he was a genius that even surpassed even his father Minato Namikaze and others like Itachi, and even requested that Naruto graduate early, but said blonde denied the request, stating that even though he was able to understand things a lot more easily than others, he still had much to learn and also wanted to graduate with his classmates. This shocked but impressed most of them due to how humble he was with his skills, since he never flaunts his abilities nor does he show arrogance like some would. Speaking of arrogance, ever since the massacre, Sasuke has become more arrogant than ever, proclaiming that he will be the one who kills Shisui and avenge his fallen clansmen, and even tries to upstage Naruto and prove that he was a true blood and not some pathetic half-breed that was showed mercy from an outcast. But no matter how many times he tried to taunt or call Naruto names, the blonde would just ignore him and walk away, stating he has better things to do than listen to some trash who doesn't even come close to matching his brother or sister in terms of skill, which would piss the boy off since he really didn't have the Sharingan in both Naruto, Sukuna, and Itachi did, and the latter's having fully matured ones at best in the second stages. Naruto gained his through pushing the limits of his eyes like his mother did, but only had the first stage of the Mangekyo Sharingan thanks to her blood and spiritual energy being stronger than any other Uchihas. He also got along well with Shino, Choji, Shikamaru, and Ino once she got the fangirl knocked out of her by Sakura. The only problem was Kiba due to the fact that he kept trying to get Hinata to go out with him, with the girl kindly refusing since she didn't like Kiba that way, and it irked the Inuzuka, and there were times where he tried to make advances on her, but they were mostly stopped by either her female friends or Naruto, who would literally beat the crap out of him for trying to make advances on his little sister. As I said, Hinata will look up to Naruto like he is her older brother, as will Hanabi. One time Hinata had enough and Juken's gentle fists him right between the legs, which resulted in him going to the hospital for a few days, and Naruto and his classmates laughed their butts off when she did that. Right now, the soon-to-be genin were in the classroom and each passed their graduation exam, so that you know they're wearing their Shippuden outfits and are 15. Naruto changed over the years due to his training under Hinata, Ichigo, and Kushina, who was making amends for her actions against Naruto for abandoning him. His hairstyle was a mixture of Minato's and Ichigo's when he exits out of the Dongai realm to face Aizen, but it was still a darker yellow color and had black and red streaks in his jaw-length bangs. He wore an open crimson shirt with long wide sleeves with a black muscle shirt under it. He also wore a pair of black Anbu-style pants with a matching color obi around his waist and black Anbu-style sandals, as well as black fingerless gloves on them. On the back of his shirt was a yin-yang symbol in gold, and on the back, under the sleeves of his arms, he wore a pair of black gauntlets with silver edges on them like the ones Ryu Hayabusa wore. Kasumi also changed over the years. Like her mother, she wore a matching red and black open jacket and pants, wearing a black tank top that stopped to her midriff but wore a fishnet shirt under it and black sandals. She kept her long red hair up into a high ponytail and also wore a black choker around her neck, as well as 2 earrings that had a whirlpool symbol on them. Like her, Sukuna also had the toned body of an actual kunoichi. She wore a dark blue strapless shirt with long sleeves that hung off her shoulders and wore a short white vest over it, with a red sash wrapped around her torso, as well as black biker shorts with black sandals, and also wore black fingerless gloves as well as a dark blue choker around her neck, and like Kasumi wore the symbol of her clan on her earrings. Right now they each had passed their exams and were all wearing their forehead protectors either around their arms, foreheads, or waist, and Iruka was congratulating them in getting this far in the academy and wishing them luck in their ninja careers, and announced that Naruto was this generation's Rookie of the Year, with Kasumi and Sukuna tying with the Kunoichi of the Year. After graduation, every parent or relative was congratulating their child in graduating and starting their career as ninja for the village. Naruto was currently with Hinata, Ichigo, Masaki, Kakashi, Rin, and Takara. Congratulations Otuto, or should I say Rookie of the Year, Kakashi replied while ruffling his little brother's hair, much to Naruto's annoyance. Aniki, stop it. The young blonde swatted his hand away while the copy ninja chuckles. Rin gives Naruto a hug while Takara and Masaki glomp his legs, talking about how their big brother was going to become the best ninja in the whole world, much to his embarrassment and his family's amusement. That was when he was tackled into a hug by Sakura. She wore a sleeveless red shirt with fishnet under it, as well as a pair of dark red fingerless gloves and black biker shorts that stopped above her knees but hugged her figure, which was that of a kunoichi in training. Her hair was a dark pink color and was in a single braid that hung over her right shoulders. Naruto-kun, we did it. We're finally ninja, she said as her face was full of excitement, while the blonde chuckled and responded with a one-armed hug that made a blush form on her face. My Kami, he's got muscles on his arms. And his chest, she thought. We sure did, Sakura-chan. I bet your parents are real proud of you, especially your dad. He replied, and she nodded in excitement. Her father Nishiki Haruno was ninja who was highly skilled in archery and genjutsu like Kurenai was. He was so good that he could easily shoot down a fly and pin it to a wall without killing it, and spent his time teaching Sakura how to use a bow and arrow in both close, mid, and long-range combat, and the man had an affinity for wind, lightning, and fire which made him even deadlier. Yeah, he's really proud of me and got me my own bow for doing so well. I can't wait to test it out on the missions we're gonna do in the future," she said in an excited tone while Naruto chuckles. "And I can't wait to see you in action with it either." The blonde replied back and noticed that Mizuki was silently walking away from the other parents and appeared to be plotting. Hingami noticed it too, as did Ichigo, and they looked at their son. "That Tem's planning something stupid," Naruto remarked, as he knew that Mizuki has always had it out for the blonde and always tried to find ways of trying to ridicule Naruto's academics until he was put in his place by Hiruzen, who threatened to deal with the man personally if he kept this up. It was now night time and Mizuki was in the forest grinning like he had won the lottery. The reason for that is because he had managed to steal the forbidden scroll when he killed a Chunin that was guarding the Hokage vault and managed to swipe it after the alarm went off. Finally, I'll no longer be held back by this weak excuse of a village and gain the power Orochimaru-sama promised that'll make me even stronger than the Hokage," he said gleefully as he hopped off a tree branch. His senses alerted him and he was forced to leap back onto the ground as several kunai were embedded into the tree he was formerly on and looked around frantically. "Shit, did the Anbu manage to catch up with me?" he thought as he looked around. He was unaware that the area behind him had rippled and swirled, and appearing from the vortex was none other than Naruto, who his fist back and struck the unaware traitor in the jaw so hard that he was sent flying into a tree and hit the ground. Well, would you look at what I've found. The most sacred scroll in the village getting stolen by a traitor. Mizuki turned his head, revealing his busted and bleeding lip as well as the blood dripping from his forehead, and saw none other than Naruto, whose Sharingan was active. Said Chunin sneered when he saw the demon brat with the scroll in his hands now, and stood up while spitting some blood out. What are you doing here, brat?" Mizuki growled out. "Hunting you down, of course, though I have to say I was expecting a challenge when searching for you. Your chakra trail was so easy to follow, it was pathetic. How did someone of your lack of skill become a Chunin in the first place? I mean seriously, my little sister is more skilled in hiding her presence than you are right now," Naruto replied in a mocking tone which pissed the Chunin off due to the fact that a current graduate was mocking him, an elite ninja of the village. "You dare mock me, you little shit? Hand the scroll over and I might consider letting you live," he tried to threaten, but Naruto merely scoffs at the murderous intent he tried to influence onto the blonde. "I have a better solution. Surrender now and I'll consider leaving all of your limbs intact," he suggested as his expression becomes cold and murderous. "If not, then I will simply break your legs, your arms, and lastly your neck before dragging your broken body back to the Hokage, and he has you visit Anko-chan and Ibiki-san for a little fun before prepping you up for your execution." His Sharingan eyes glow red, which unnerved Mizuki, who had a bead of sweat drip down the side of his face, tries to muster up his courage. "I'd rather die," he screamed, pulling out one of his Fuma Shuriken and throwing it with deadly accuracy as it descended towards Naruto. Said blonde clenches his fist and his fingers shift from their tan color to pitch black, and Naruto brought his hand up. Mizuki grinned in glee as he assumed that his weapon would tear Naruto's arm apart, only for him to hear a clang and the projectile clangs as it was caught in Naruto's hand. "What? But how?" a startled Mizuki asked while a smirk appeared on Naruto's face. The blonde crushes the blade in his hand and tosses it away. "Do you honestly think that a weakling like you stands a chance in fighting me? Especially if I possess a fully mature Sharingan. But the worst thing about this situation is that you looked me directly in the eyes, which is something only an idiot would do." Mizuki felt his hand tremble and move upwards, much to his shock, and moved to his neck. He tried to pull his arm away but struggled to do so. "Ji Genjutsu," Mizuki replied. "Good guess," said a voice behind him, and then cried out in pain as Naruto stabbed him in the back with a kunai. Mizuki saw that the Naruto in front of him shimmered into a bunch of feathers and then fell to his knees as he couldn't feel his legs anymore. My legs, I can't feel them," he stammered out. "I stabbed you in the lower column of your spine where the joints are and severed them with wind-enhanced chakra, therefore destroying your ability to walk, ever." Naruto ripped the kunai out and Mizuki fell face first onto the ground as Naruto walked around him and crouches down. "I was aiming to kill you, but then I would be ruining Anko-chan's chance to have a crack at you before you go on the chopping block. Though I will miss all those times I sent you to the hospital with a broken jaw or cracked ribs," Naruto said in a solemn yet mocking tone. Damn you, demon. Damn you," he growled out while Naruto rolled his eyes, stood up and slams his foot into the man's face, hearing the sound of his nose breaking and Mizuki's muffled screams under his foot. "Shut up, trash." With that, Naruto proceeds to beat the man within an inch of his life, breaking several ribs, both legs, his arms, and even his jaw. Later on the Anbu arrived at the scene to see Naruto sitting on an unconscious and broken Mizuki's back whistling a happy tune and inspecting a kunai until he saw the Anbu and waved. "Yo, you guys sure took your sweet time getting here," he announced happily while the Anbu sweat dropped when they saw the broken man's form. "Damn, talk about ruthless. Is he still alive?" Lion asked the blonde. Naruto responded by getting off Mizuki and lightly kick him with the back of his heel, getting a moan from the man. "Yes, he's alive, but his career as a ninja is long over with, but then again he will be facing the chopping block, so it really doesn't matter," he answered back as he picked Mizuki up by the collar and tosses him at the Anbu, and the man moans in pain as he is caught. "Thanks for the help, Kurosaki-san," Hawk said as he caught the forbidden scroll that Naruto tossed to him. "No problem, and tell the old monkey he owes me big for this," Naruto answered in a joking manner and then shunpos home. Next day, Hiruzen Sarutobi was sitting at his desk with several jonin who were gonna be senseis for whomever passed the secret tests they were having, and standing beside him was Himegami with her arms folded. So far he had already set up Team 7, 8, and 10, but the only problem was who would be the sensei for Team 6 that consisted of Naruto Kurosaki, Kasumi Namikaze, and Sukina Uchiha. Kakashi was gonna be the sensei for Sasuke Uchiha, Hiba Inuzuka, and Sai. Anko was gonna be the sensei for Hinata Hyuga, Shino Aburame, and Sakura Haruno, since Kurenai had taken Yukumo as an apprentice and Asuma would be in charge of the Ino Shikacho generation. Right now he only had a few options for them. Itachi couldn't either since he is the head chief of the Uchiha police force. He only had a few options, and so the man let out a tiring sigh. "All the teams are lined up except for a few. If anyone has any suggestions, I'd be happy to hear them," Sarutobi asked the elite ninja of the village. "Anyo Hokage-sama," Kushina spoke up, getting the man's attention. During the past couple of years he kept a discreet eye on Kushina after she made a vow to make amends for what she has done to Naruto, and while the blonde had given her a chance at redemption, he was still cautious around her, which did hurt her a little, but figured it was better than being completely shut off from him. It also took her a while to in the good graces of Kakashi, Rin, and her 3 students Kurenai, Anko, and Hyuga, but like Naruto, they also decided to give her another chance. When Kasumi found out about what she did, the young redhead went off on Kushina, going so far as to call her own mother an idiot in believing that Naruto was reborn as Kyuubi, and that hurt her greatly, but afterwards, told her mother she had a lot of making up to do for Naruto. "Yes, Kushina," Hiruzen asked one of the strongest kunoichi aside from Tsunade in the village. "I would like to be Team 6 a sensei if that is possible," she offered while the man gave her a critical look, searching for any form of deception in eyes, but found nothing except regret, sadness, and a form of hope in where she would be fully forgiven. "On one hand I could just say no, especially since Himegami-sama would practically kill me, but then again maybe I should give her a chance like Naruto-kun and the others have. I know she's been trying to make amends with the boy and has been doing a good job so far." He tapped his finger on his desk a few times before nodding. "Very well then, Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, you will be the sensei of Team 6. He said, which made her expression brighten up. Afterwards the rest of the jonin left, but Hiruzen had Kushina stay for a few seconds. "Listen Kushina, the true reason I approved of this is because you and Naruto have had a rocky start a couple of years back and you've been trying to redeem yourself. Plus I already know Himegami has trained Naruto personally since she adopted him, and I know from experience just how powerful that woman is, and you do too," he said in a humorous manner while Kushina looked down in embarrassment and blushed a little from the kicking the Uchiha gave her. She still felt the fathom pain of when she punched her through several walls and hit her hard enough to break nearly most of her ribs and almost keel over and throw up her insides and rubbed her stomach as an emphasis. "And I thought Tsunade Oba-chan hits hard," she muttered while the man lightly chuckled before getting serious once again. "Joking aside Kushina, if Naruto is willing to give you clean slate once you've proven yourself to him, then so am I, but I warn you, don't screw this up," he warned the redhead, who nodded. "I won't, Hokage-sama," she answers back with a bow before vanishing in a whirlpool shunshin. "Do you think I did the right thing, Himegami-sama?" Sarutobi asked, and said female Uchiha exits out of the shadows of the office. "Honestly, I still have my doubts, but I'm not gonna crucify the girl yet." That was when a grim expression formed on her face. "Though I did discover something interesting on Kushina. Apparently she had some type of seal on the back of her neck that altered her personality. It looked similar to T-House Juin seals I saw on those root Anbu that were under the control of that war hawk," she states before Hiruzen's eyes widened and then narrowed dangerously. "Danzo." He snarled the name out and realized that fool was responsible for Naruto's hectic life. "If that bastard wasn't already dead, I'd find a way to bring him back to life and kill him myself. I should have known Kushina wasn't being herself that day. Hell, I never took Kushina as the type to abandon her family. That son of a bitch played us all." With that the man slammed his fist on the table. "Maybe so, but now he's a dead fool spending the rest of eternity in hell, where I'm pretty sure he's getting well acquainted with the real demons. Well, if you don't mind, I'll be heading back to my Masumi, and feel free to drop by, old monkey. She said with a grin on her face before vanishing in a swirl of fire, while Hiruzen mumbled. Well, excuse me for not being blessed with eternal youth, senpai. He muttered before pulling out his ICHA book. Shinobi Academy. Naruto was sitting by Kasumi and Sukina reading a book based on the feats of the Rakuto Sennin who fought and defeated the Jubi, the demon ruler of the Makai realm centuries ago, as well as how the man created the shinobi world. Sukina was polishing the ninjutsu her mother gave her as a graduation present, which was the same one Makoto had when she was a genin. Kasumi was swirling her hand over her palm, creating an orb of water in her hand which got bigger until it was the size of a basketball. She then held the water ball in her palm like it was a water balloon and grinned as she set her sights on Kiba, who was sleeping on the desk. She then brought her own other hand behind the water ball and aims it at the back of Kiba's head. Naruto saw this out of the corner of his eyes and his lips curve up into a small smile before Kasumi flicked her finger and shot the balloon at Kiba and hits him dead on in the back of his head, making him jump up and awaken from his slumber and scream in surprise while the rest of the class laughed at him. He growled and turned his gaze at Kasumi, who was pretending to read the same book Naruto was reading, and growled before sitting back down. Bitch, he muttered before yelping out in pain as he was hit across the head by a textbook by Kasumi, who had a tick mark on her head and her brow twitched at the name, and now the Inuzuka was sporting a lump on the side of his head while Naruto chuckled at what happened. Afterwards Iruka entered the room and informed them of their role as ninja of the leaf before introducing the team formations. Team 6 will Naruto Kurosaki. Naruto closed his book and listened intently and inwardly praying to Kami that he wasn't put on a team with Sasuke or Kiba, since all they would do is try to upstage him and disliked with a passion. Kasumi Namikaze. The redhead's expression brightened up. And Sukina Uchiha? He answered. Yes. Sukina jumped out of her seat with her hands in the air, accidentally sending her ninjutsu flying into the air and getting embedded into the ceiling. Sukina froze for a few seconds and looked down to see the other students staring at her before she quickly sat back down with her face matching the color of an apple and sinking into her seat, trying to be invisible. Sorry, she mumbled. Anyway, your sensei will be Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. He answered. Kasumi's eyes widened in wonder while Naruto simply raised an eyebrow. Sukina was still red-faced while Iruka announced the rest of the teams. Team 7 will be Sasuke Uchiha, Kiba Inuzuka and Sai. Your sensei will be Kakashi Hatake. Iruka answered, getting a complaint from Kiba while Sasuke just scowls and Sai remains impassive. Team 8 will be Shino Aburame, Hinata Hyuga, and Sakura Haruno. Your sensei will be Anko Mitarashi. Iruka announced before paling at the name and looking at his students. Dear Kami. Both he and Naruto say at the same time before Sakura and Hinata pale in fear while Shino was raising an eyebrow, curious about who their new sensei was. And finally Ino Yamanaka, Shoji Akamichi, and Shikamaru Nara. Your sensei is Asuma Sarutobi. That was when each of the senseis appeared in the room, well except for Kakashi. Where's Aniki? Naruto wondered as he looked around before the door opened and entering the room was an irritated Rin dragging a swirly-eyed Kakashi into the room, bound by rope with a large lump on his head. The man's pure sweat dropped at this as Rin dropped him on the floor before waving happily at Naruto and leaving while said blonde chuckled at this and shook his head in amusement. That was until he was glomped by a happy Anko who buried his face in between her. Hey Senku-kun, she squealed out in delight while Naruto struggled to escape and push her off. Most of the males were either gawking at the form of expression or getting a bloody nose while being jealous of Naruto for the position he's in, while Sakura, Sukina, and Kasumi were seething at what Anko was doing to their Naruto. Said finally managed to push his head out of her chest with a flustered blush on his face and glaring at a grinning Anko. Anko-chan, let go of me or I gonna tell Tsuruoji to ban you from eating dango for a whole month. He warned the purple-haired Kunoichi, whose eyes widened in fear and returned back to her position and rubs the back of her head sheepishly. Damn it, why does he get all the hot chicks? Kiba complained but was ignored. So which one of these maggots is gonna be my playthings? Anko asked out loud, eyeing the students like a predator and saw Kasumi pointing to Sakura, Hinata, and Shino and her grin grew sadistic. Happy birthday to me. Sakura and Hinata were gulping while Shino was shivering in fear a little as she rubbed her hands in an evil fashion. Kushina sighs at her former student's antics before setting her gaze at Naruto. This time I will make things right, Naruto-kun, no matter what. She swore.